Okay, so picture this. You're in ancient Rome. The year is 67 AD. The streets are packed, and there's a buzz in the air because the emperor himself, Nero, is passing by. And right beside him is his new wife, this absolutely stunning young woman, just draped in the most expensive silks and jewels you've ever seen. But as they go by, you hear these whispers rippling through the crowd because everyone knows a deeply chilling secret. And that is the horrifying truth at the center of this entire explainer. This isn't just another story about Roman excess. No, this is the story of how absolute, unchecked power led to grief, to madness, and to the complete and utter destruction of a young boy's identity. So, how on earth did something so disturbing happen? Well, to really understand the tragedy of Sporus, we have to start with the man who orchestrated it all, Emperor Nero. Now, here's the crazy thing. Nero wasn't born a monster, not at all. His early reign, which started when he was just a teenager, actually showed incredible promise. The Romans really thought a new golden age was beginning. But absolute power? I mean, the kind of power where you are the one person in 60 million who can never be challenged, never be told no? It fundamentally broke something inside of him. So what was the tipping point? What's the thing that pushed Nero from being a pretty decent ruler into a paranoid, violent tyrant? Well, it was a woman. His second wife, Poppaea Sabina. Poppaea was smart. She was ambitious, a real political player. But you've got to understand, what Nero felt for her, it wasn't love. It was a dangerous, all-consuming obsession. He didn't see a partner or an equal. He saw a beautiful object that existed for one reason and one reason only: his pleasure. And his behavior just got more and more out of control. He completely isolated her, surrounded her with guards, and would fly into these violent rages if any other man so much as looked in her direction. He wasn't protecting her, he was putting her in a cage. This whole thing just spiraled, and fast. He divorces his first wife, marries Poppaea in this huge ceremony, and then just a few years later, the inevitable happens. They get into an argument. Some historians say it was because he got home late from the chariot races. And Nero, in a fit of pure rage, kicks or strikes his pregnant wife so hard that she dies. The most powerful man in the world had just destroyed the one thing he seemed to genuinely care about. But his reaction, his grief, it wasn't normal. It was a complete and total break from reality. He refused to cremate her body, which was the Roman custom. Instead, he had her embalmed, declared her an actual goddess, and then spent days on end just talking to her corpse as if she were still alive. So just imagine being in the imperial court right now. It's a terrifying place where everyone is forced to pretend the dead empress is still walking around. And it's in this bizarre, horrifying atmosphere that Nero's eyes land on a young freedman in the palace, a boy named Sporus. And there was one fateful reason why. This young man, who was probably only around 14 or 15 years old, had this uncanny, shocking resemblance to Poppaea. And in Nero's completely shattered mind, a truly horrifying idea starts to form. A chance to undo what he did, to literally bring back the woman he had just destroyed. There was just one, tiny problem, right? Sporus was a boy. But when you think you're a living god, that's just a minor detail. What happened next was an act of cold, calculated cruelty. Nero ordered the best doctors in Rome to castrate the boy. A horribly dangerous and obviously irreversible surgery, all to make this transformation permanent. But the physical surgery, that was just the start. After Sporus was given a new name, Sabina, Nero started the systematic process of re-education. Sporus was taught how to apply makeup, how to wear these elaborate hairstyles, how to walk, how to sit, even how to change the pitch of his voice. Every single lesson was designed to systematically destroy the person he once was. Then, in the spring of 67 AD, Nero marries Sporus in a full-blown imperial wedding. This shocked even the most jaded members of the Roman elite. And trust me, they had seen a lot. Sporus was now, for all intents and purposes, the empress of Rome, living in unimaginable luxury. But it was nothing more than a cage of gold. Can you even begin to imagine the psychological pressure? Every single day was this terrifying, high-stakes performance. Sporus had to perfectly play the part of a dead empress he'd never even met, knowing that one tiny mistake, the gesture that was a little too masculine, a forgotten detail, could get him killed. And this is where you see just how far gone Nero really was. He didn't just want to stand in, he genuinely truly believed he had brought Poppaea back from the dead. He would talk to Sporus about shared memories from his first marriage, and Sporus had to play along, pretending he remembered them too. It's just insane. This bizarre, terrifying existence went on for about 2 years. But eventually, Nero's madness and his excesses caught up with him. Rebellions started breaking out, the Senate declared him an enemy of the state, and he was forced to flee Rome, taking Sporus with him. And when his enemies finally closed in, Nero took his own life, leaving Sporus, the most visible living symbol of his madness, completely and utterly exposed. You know, what happened next is maybe even more tragic. Sporus just became a political pawn, a piece of property to be passed between the powerful men who came after Nero. Each one of them claimed him as their wife, continuing the grotesque theater that Nero had started. He was an object to be owned. So Sporus's nightmare journey through this revolving door of Roman emperors eventually leads him to the court of a man named Vitellius. And what this man had in mind for him was just beyond cruel. Vitellius decided he was going to use Sporus for public entertainment. His plan was to stage this huge spectacle in the Colosseum, where Sporus would be forced to publicly reenact a mythological scene that involved sexual violence and utter humiliation, all for the amusement of a crowd of thousands. After everything, everything he had been through, the mutilation, the years of psychological abuse, being passed around like property, this was the final, absolute degradation. And rather than submit to it, Sporus made a choice. For the first time in years, it was a choice that was truly his own. Sometime in the year 69 AD, Sporus took his own life. He was probably no more than 20 years old. You see, his death wasn't just an escape. It was the only act of agency, the only piece of control he had left. After years of having his body, his name, his entire identity dictated by other people, he finally reclaimed the power to decide his own fate. We know the story of what was done to Sporus, but we know almost nothing about the boy himself. Who was he, really? What were his hopes, his dreams? All of that, it was just erased when he was forced to become someone else's living doll. His story is this haunting reminder that behind all the grand sagas of history, there are real, individual human lives that were destroyed, and whose true stories we will never ever know.